What's up, everybody? We are back after a week off with some UFC DFS picks for DraftKings, FanDuel, best bets, everything you need, lineup strategy, FanDuel, DraftKings. It is UFC Paris, Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa, heavyweight matchup. Again, we had a week off last week. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com. Jake, I hope you enjoyed your week off and ready to get back to work.
Yeah, man, got to go out of town. That never happens. So, yeah, it was nice. Now we're back at it.
It was nice for the UFC to take off so you could go out of town, right? The way the schedules aligned was pretty perfect.
Yeah, man, had to call in a favor for my cousin's wedding. So glad we could make that work.
Perfect. So here's what we're going to do for this video. We do this every week that there's a card of 12 or more fights. We just barely got there this week, by the way, with the late edition. But we break down the main event from a betting and DFS perspective. This week, that's Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa. We talk about newcomers. It seems like the last couple of months we haven't had that many. So UFC decided to throw all of them at us at once. We have 7 newcomers on this card. We're going to give quick synopsis of their backgrounds, their fighting styles, what we expect from DFS. We'll play good fighter, bad bad matchup for any fighter who has less than 4 fights under their belt. Just 2 of those this week, but we'll still give you a little more context to their stats that they have on their record. You see the Prize Picks promo, 100% deposit match bonus. Use promo code OCCUPY. There you go. Prize Picks. Pair up some UFC props. Win some big paydays. We'll give 1 or 2 Prize Picks props here. Fight that you have to target in DFS. Whoever wins probably is going to score really well. We'll talk about that near the end. And then we'll close out with our stream parlay, 2 of our favorite bets, put it together for a high payout. So, Jake, let's get started. Cyril Gane, biggest favorite on the card. Tai Tuivasa, insane knockout run that he's on. You and I were talking right before the stream went live that a lot of his knockouts haven't aged well. But I'm also, I got to say, I'm a little bitter because the last time he fought, I was in Vegas watching the fights, and I had a big position on Derek Lewis, especially in DFS, needed because Tuivasa was pretty popular as an underdog there, and naturally he won. And to make matters even worse, just to compound the fact that watching UFC live with other people is a terrible experience, people were doing shoeies in the bar to celebrate, and so bad taste in my mouth anytime Tuivasa fights. But toss me about this matchup. Does he have a shot? How does it play out for DFS?
Oh man, nothing like lighting money on fire and having people at the bar doing shoeies to celebrate it. But
For sure.
yeah, man, I think we've seen Ghana in enough 5 round fights now. I mean, basically all of his fights are 5 round fights. I think we have a pretty good idea. Looking back at him, he did the 5 round fight with Rosenstrike, low volume decision. Did a 5 round fight with Volkov, a little bit more volume. Just kind of patiently picked him apart, 5 round decision. Derek Lewis, he was doing the same thing. Derek Lewis just only has 3 rounds of cardio in him. So after 3 rounds, Gon finished him. Against Nagano, I mean, that surprised everyone. We had the crazy wrestling from Nagano after, Gon was doing his thing. He won the first 2 rounds, slowly picking Nagano apart. I mean, Gon is who he is. I mean, he's a really talented, super mobile, super fast heavyweight, picks guys apart. He's not going to put himself in danger. He's going to get out of the way. They're fighting in the big cage in Paris in front of his home crowd, historic card. I don't think he's going to get too emotional or do anything crazy because of that. I think he's going to wait Tuivasa out. Tuivasa, I think he has 1 win in his career beyond the 7 minute mark. I think he's 1-3 in fights that have lasted longer than 7 minutes. So, I mean, Gon basically just needs to wait for a round and a half, jab him from the outside, throw some kicks, not get caught with anything. I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight smart, and that's just who he is. So, I mean, I think that basically kind of you get the idea of what we're going to see because we've seen it so many times. You can look at the past scoring, you can look at the last volume. Like maybe we get a little bit more volume. Maybe Tuivasa gasses out because he's never been past the 3rd round in a fight. We don't know what his cardio looks like. Whereas some of the other fighters that Gon's been fighting, I mean, those are 5 round fighters. They're accustomed to 5 round fights. So the wild card is what Tuivasa's cardio looks like, assuming Tuivasa doesn't randomly land another crazy KO bomb, which, I mean, he just keeps doing them. But, I mean, you look at who he's been knocking out. I mean, Tuivasa knocks out Stefan Struve. Struve immediately retires. I think Struve lost 5 of his last 6 fights. Tuivasa knocks out Harry Hunsucker. Harry Hunsucker, 0-3. He spent like 30 seconds in the UFC, no longer in the UFC. Knocks out Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy, no longer in the UFC. Knocks out Sakai. Sakai's been knocked out in 4 straight fights, probably on the fringe of being cut right now. And then the Derek Lewis one looked better, but now Derek Lewis has been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights. doesn't look so great now. I mean, you go into Gane. Gane's never been finished. He's coming off his first career loss. It was against Ngannou. This is a major, major step up for Tuivasa, and it's a big step down, from fighting Ngannou down to Tuivasa for Gane. So, I mean, I think that is what it is. I think we're going to see Gane pick him apart until Tuivasa runs out of cardio, or until we get to the 25-minute mark.
For sure. And I would say if Gon had not fought a power puncher in the past, then maybe we'd be a little more concerned, maybe a little more likely that Tuivasa can land something. But he's fought some of the most powerful, most dangerous guys in Rosenstrike, in Lewis, and then now most recently, especially in Ngannou, who anyone's afraid to get near. And really, Ngannou never got close to landing a power shot in that fight. So, yeah, great matchup for Cyril Gane. The big question here, obviously, is, well, I guess the lesser question, if you play low risk out there, do you stack this main event? And I think you might have to, just because of Tuivasa's price and what it allows you to do. But more importantly, can Gane get there in tournaments when he's priced as high as he is? And unless he has an outlier performance, which he could, we don't know what Tuivasa's cardio looks like. But if he does have an outlier performance and he scores 95 to 105 points, is that enough on the slate? Only 12 fights and lots of unknown question marks. So that's the big question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I think that he could score a little bit better and still get priced out of the winning lineup. I think there's lots of ways that Gane gets priced out here. I think he has a really safe floor. I think he makes a ton of sense, obviously, in cash, but also small field stuff. But I think in the biggest tournaments, he's really going to need a ceiling performance, that probably some more grappling, which could happen. I mean, Tuivasa has like a 50% takedown defense. Gane will shoot for takedowns. He just has like a 22% accuracy and doesn't land very many. But if he can get some takedowns, I mean, we've seen heavyweights go crazy in scoring when they can get takedowns and just go to town with ground and pound. So that would be one way he puts up a huge score. Another way would be Tuivasa just completely fades late and Gane really turns it on, lands way more volume than we've seen. Or a well-timed finish would obviously have the potential to put up a big score, maybe, or a multi-knockdown performance. So there are ways he can do it, but there are lots of ways he can't, which he's shown us. I mean, time after time, is if he just sits there and picks them apart and scores 95, he's not going to be in the main tournament winning lineups on DraftKings or FanDuel.
Absolutely. So that'll be the biggest decision point you have to make on this card. Remember, it starts at noon Eastern, so make sure you get those lineups in early. All right, Jake, as we talked about, 7 newcomers on the card. Way to welcome you back into town. Lots of tape to chart and digest. Let's run through them. We'll go from the highest price to the lowest price for these new fighters on the card. And we're going to keep this brief because it's 7 of them, right? This video could last forever if we start talking about them. So just give me background, fighting style, outlook for this fight. Okay, so we got the first one at 8,900. It's Abus Magomedov.
Yeah, so this guy is 31 years old, like 24, 4-1. Man, I don't know how you come back from this guy. He fought for $1 million in the PFL finals, and dude got knocked out in 33 seconds by a 40-year-old wrestling coach who never fought again. I'm not sure how you come back from that. But in fairness, he landed back-to-back submissions since then. But the guy hasn't fought since December 2020. He had his debut scheduled twice, pulled out both times. Who knows what's going on with him? I don't know if it was injuries or what, but definitely some red flags there in terms of inactivity, mental mindset, just kind of where he's at overall. But he's a pretty well-rounded fighter in a good matchup. But I'm not overly impressed by him. But he was born in Dagestan before moving to Germany, so I guess you got to give him some wrestling credit.
Yeah, that PFL, that's like losing a milli in DFS on a stat correction or like a last minute play, because that should not happen. All right, let's see. Scrolling on down, we got William Gomez. Again, this fight was added late to the card. Gomez against Aarons. Both these guys are fighting against each other. Gomez fighting in front of the home crowd here in Paris. So both of these guys, backgrounds, what this matchup could look like.
Yeah, Gomez is 25 years old, 10-2, coming in on an 8-fight winning streak. His last 3, 5 of his last 6 have ended early. Pretty well rounded, Guy's good at pressure, pretty strong in the clinch. Yeah, I'd say he's a pretty decent prospect, really fast, and he can get people down, he can strike, he can kind of do it all. Still a little bit green, trains at an MMA factory in Paris with Gane and Imavov, so I'm sure when they needed a fight, they were both just like, yeah, we know a guy.
Yeah.
They just like literally took a bus over or something, So yeah, pretty decent fighter. And then he's going to be taking on Aaron's 27-year-old Dutch kickboxer, pretty solid power. But this guy's been super vulnerable to being controlled. Second most recent fight, got controlled for like 25 straight minutes. Last fight, got controlled for like a round and a half. Did show some improvement, I would say, to his grappling. So work in progress, but he's primarily a striker trying to improve his grappling. So pretty interesting going against a more well-rounded fighter in Gomez there.
Yeah, and if you look at the model this week, the Occupy model, which ranks every fighter, FanDuel and DraftKings, uses fight level data. It shouldn't surprise you when you hear that Ernst has been controlled and Gomez is good at controlling when you see Gomez's OF index this week. All right, scrolling on down, we have, I don't know if it's Michael or Mihal. I saw two different pronunciations, but I do know his last name is Figlak, and he's the Mad Dog, and he's fighting. So give me the rundown on Figlak here.
I want to say it's Mihail, but
That sounds right.
whatever. Big Black, this guy's a stud, man. 26 years old, 8-0. He's fought some good competition. Like he earned that record. Really well-rounded, man. Good striker. He'll mix in takedowns. Really good boxing. Solid pressure. Good combinations. I would say he's the most interesting prospect of all these new guys.
It's funny because as I was watching him, I was like, "Wow, Jake's gonna like this guy," which like isn't like saying anything because he is a good fighter. It's like, that should just be a credit to you. It's like, yeah, Jake likes a good fighter. That's a good thing. All right, let's see here. We got another short notice replacement, Christian Quinones. He is fighting Taha here. What'd you see on Quinones?
Yeah, so this is the little brother of Jose Quinones, who he went 5-4 in the UFC, lost his last two to Sean O'Malley and Louis Smolka. I was never that impressed by Jose, and not really that impressed by Christian either. This guy's 26 years old, 17-3, coming off a decision win on the Contender Series. I mean, he seems fine. Primarily a striker. Didn't really show much grappling. Kind of landed one takedown recently. Didn't do anything with it. I would say he's okay. Didn't really stand out. I mean, he seems like he's a slot filler basically. Not terrible, but I don't see him having like some lengthy career.
All right, fair enough. All right, sorry, Quinones. Moving on, and we have two fighters here priced near the bottom of the player pool. We have Gabriel Miranda. Let's start with him, Jake, the mustache man himself.
Oh, well, I mean, the first thing I saw the curly mustache, I was like, well, he can't win. No one ever wins with the curly
It's
mustaches.
true.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
that's one of the deep metrics that the model uses. Yeah, if the mustache is too curly, no chance.
yeah, right, impossible. So 32-year-old guy, 16-5, BJJ black belt. Dude throws up crazy, just wild submissions. He's never won a fight that made it past the 6-minute mark. 14 of his wins have come in round one. Problem is he's been fighting some pretty questionable opponents and some dubious organizations. You know, Tapology like flags his record. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's always hard to tell. Like, is he a mirage? Because he looks great on tape when you see him. I mean, he's just jumping guillotine, doing all sorts of crazy submissions. But if you're fighting bums, it's easy to look good. So I mean, we don't really know what to expect out of him yet. So we're going to learn a lot here, but it's an interesting matchup. We're going to see some crazy grappling in that one.
I'm excited for that one. And then at the end we have Eileen Perez, who's fighting Stephanie Egger. Perez, perhaps more known if you watched any of her tape for her ass shaking than her fighting, but she showed that off in the weigh-ins as well. But the line is moving in her favor tremendously, Jake. You and I are both pretty shocked by this, given her level of competition. But I'm curious to see what you saw on her tape.
Yeah, man, her tape was pretty questionable. But 27 years old, 7-1, has never fought anyone even remotely decent. She's a ground and pound specialist, so literally just bullies all of her opponents, takes them down, and just beats them up until the ref stops the fight or she gets DQ'd. She's only a BJJ blue belt. I think that's pretty concerning going against the judo black belt here. And I don't know why the field likes her. I mean, I will say every time you watch her tape, it seems like she like loses weight between every fight and gets in better shape from like her third most recent fight to weigh-ins. You can definitely see a progression that she's been like working on just the physicality of the game. But yeah, I don't know how you go from fighting people that like never have a professional win to all of a sudden getting a UFC contract and, you know, taking on Stephanie Egger, who's like actually good. So I don't know. Maybe she'll surprise us all. Maybe she'll continue to bully people. This is up a weight class at 145. Egger normally fights at 135. But yeah, I don't have very high hopes for Perez here. I feel like she's setting herself up for a round one armbar.
I mean, I think if she gets the right matchup, she could put up a great DFS score. But she's not like Casey O'Neill, or she's not like, who was the girl who made the debut recently that we were super impressed with, and we were saying, oh, maybe for the second matchup, she'll be better, but she ended up just
Oh,
smashing in her debut. Who was that?
yeah, what was her name? I know who you're talking about. Yeah, the girl that had like a couple of years off, and then she killed Jasmine.
Yes,
What's
yes,
her
yeah.
name? Jazz the Vicious. Yeah, what is her name? I can't remember it
Point
now.
being
But yeah,
is this girl is not one of those girls that we're excited to play, but just keep an eye because again, the crazy things can happen and the line is moving a lot in her favor, which is always causes us to scratch our heads. All right, Jake, just two fighters who have less than 3 fights that aren't making their debut. Just a little bit of stats on their record, so a little context. Are they a good fighter? Are they a bad fighter? And is this a good matchup or a bad matchup to score well in DFS? The first one is Saint Denis, who is fighting Miranda, the submission specialist.
yeah, I think he's a pretty good fighter. I think it's a bad matchup for him, man. Miranda's a black belt, Sandini's a brown belt. Miranda's never been subbed. Like, I think it's a good matchup from DFS because he could just like get like 20 takedowns. And I mean, obviously this is a DFS thing, but I think like in terms of getting a finish, I think it's a hard matchup for Saint Denis to get a finish just because the other guy's such a good grappler. But he could still score well without a finish on DraftKings through grappling stats. So it's a complicated answer, but I would say he's a decent fighter in a weird matchup.
It's
I mean,
scary,
I
man.
think
It's scary
prelims
because he's
would
going to be
score well.
somewhat popular, at least I imagine. And I mean, like you said in the write up, he has a 0 point floor. Like he could get subbed early, but he also could lead the slate in scoring, and that's a terrifying prospect when they're high owned.
I know, man. It's so hard. I was not prepared to answer that question, even though I should have been. But it's like it's literally such a wide range of outcomes. Either guy could sub the other. I think if it lasts longer than a round and a half, I think Sandini is going to take over. And at that point, I mean, as long as he fights aggressively, then he's going to be in a good matchup. But if you watched like the Russian guy that fought Miranda, and he just stood above him and kicked his legs while Miranda kept jumping guillotine, he just shoved him off. Like, could I see that happening? Like, maybe. I mean, it's not crazy to think Sandini would fight smart.
That's true,
Like,
right? Plus, like you see this,
it is
you
scary.
get in the guillotine one time, you're like, all right, fuck that, I'm not gonna do that again, right? And you don't let him get that
Right.
opportunity, and then that lowers his ceiling too. So there's so many ways that this fight can play out. It's one of the most interesting ones on the card, and probably the most important to getting right for tournaments. Uh, the money you make is going to be decided by this fight, I think.
I think so too, man. I think both guys have a 0 to 130 point like scoring outcome.
Very sick. All right. And then we have one more fighter who has less than 3 fights on their record. It's Kopylov, who is 0-2 in the UFC, lost to Duraev and Roberson. Hasn't fought since 2021, October 30th. But is he a good fighter? Is he a bad fighter? And is this a good matchup for him?
He's a good striker, but he's a bad fighter, man. He gets on the mat, and this guy is just like immediately a vulnerability to get finished, like by ground and pound, by submissions. He's so bad on the mat, but he's facing like the dude with probably the lowest fight IQ on the slate in Alessio Di Chirico, who literally lost to Kevin Holland after Kevin Holland like dislocated his shoulder. Kevin Holland beat him with one hand, and the dude never capitalized it. And it was like Kevin Holland hurt his shoulder in the middle of the fight and went a round and a half with one with just his left hand and still beat Di Chirico. So if he was a smart fighter, like he would just take Kopylov down and murder him. But I'm pretty sure Jericho goes home and just like chews on rocks. So I don't even know what to call that matchup. The guy's durable, but he's also an idiot. So I guess Kopylov is in like a good matchup from the perspective that maybe he knocks out the Jericho, but the guy's been fairly durable up until getting head kicked 17 seconds into his last fight by Al Hassan and getting like knocked out. So that's a weird matchup too, man. I would say bad fighter, bad matchup, but
Super weird.
that's
It's
one
a
of those
weird card,
bad
dude.
matchups. Yeah,
It's a weird card
I
all
think
around for sure.
either guy most likely busts, but either guy definitely has a path to scoring well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So 12 fights on the card. Lots of ways this can go. Let's wrap it up here. We'll do prize picks, fight to target, and we will do our stream parlay. So prize picks, you see the promo code, get a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100, $300 to add more plays, more legs to your prop parlays over there. Jake, there's a couple juicy ones as there always are. What's one that stands out to you this week over there?
I like Egger under 12 and a half minutes. Basically almost all of her wins come in the first two rounds. And I just want to point out that was probably the least helpful good matchup, bad matchup we've ever done. I'm just like, yeah, anyone could do anything.
We got to let people know, right? Hey, sometimes we have a pretty nailed down range of outcomes, and it's narrow, and we can narrow it down. for some, it's really hard, dude. We don't have all the answers, right? So I think just telling people that it can go so many different ways is probably helpful. Maybe to some people it's not, but we think it's helpful.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it real here, you know.
There we go. All right, so fight you have to target. And then we just talked about the one where either guy could score 135. Let's ignore that fight, the Saint Denis fight. What's another fight that you think whoever wins has a really good chance of ending up in the optimal lineup?
I mean, you know what I'm going with here. It's obviously the Jourdain Wood fight.
Yeah,
I
duh.
mean, Jourdain's super high volume and a complete vulnerability on the mat. So he offers both a high ceiling for himself and a high ceiling for his opponents if he either gets taken down or we just see a high volume brawl and he loses a decision. I mean, Wood could just win a super high volume decision, score 90 points, end up in the winning lineup. And it's actually pretty likely if he doesn't get it finished. I mean, Jourdain, I want to say, is like 1-3-1 in decisions recently. He
Should have
doesn't
won the last
fight to
one.
win decisions. I mean, he probably should have, man. I was looking at different ways he could have won that or at least got a draw. I mean, he literally beat up Shane Burgos so bad in the third round. Shane Burgos left the UFC and joined the PFL.
That is for sure. So, all right. So, Wood and Jourdain, anytime Jourdain's on the card, Jake's going to throw that in the fight to target. But for real this time, it's a good one to target, as it always is. So, all right. Let's close it out here. Stream Parlay of the Week. For all of the best bets for this card, you want some more action, you want some betting action, go check out Jake's site, MMADFS.com. You want to subscribe to his site earlier in the week because it gives out bets before the lines move. That's key. You need that. For bets that are still out there, he puts them in the daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com here on Friday nights. So tons of bets, over 15, 20 different bets you can make. We try to pick out our favorite ones that are still available for our Stream Parlay here. And we talked about the Gomez fight. We talked about the Aaron's fight. And Aaron's looks relatively durable to me. And you mentioned the controlling aspect. And we can get Gomez to win a unanimous decision, plus 550, which is pretty interesting to me. I don't see this being a split decision. Maybe it is, right? But I think the fighting style here lends itself to a unanimous decision if he wins. And I think Aaron's is durable enough here. For plus 550, I'll take that shot. Gomez by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I like that too, man. Especially with like the home Paris narrative. It seems like the unanimous decision and the regular decision should be way closer. They're pretty, more than double. So I think I like that bet. I think that's a good one. I mean, you look at the weight class. I mean, 145 historically goes to like the most decisions. So I think that weight class is a good one to target decisions on a fight that a lot of people think it's going to end early.
Yes.
But I think there's a pretty good chance it does go to decision. And I agree that Aaron's is durable. I'm going to add a safer leg, if we're going to go a little bit wider than that. By safer, I mean the one that ruins the parlay. I'm, I'm, I'm going to go with Imavov Buckley. Fight ends in KO. I think like 78% of Buckley's career fights have ended in knockouts. Imavov's coming off back-to-back TKO wins. Is that negative 105? I think that's sort of like a value bet. I feel like it should be probably like negative 140 or something, maybe even wider. So even money, man. I mean, could Imavov sub him? Maybe. Could he go the distance? Maybe. But I still think knockout is by far the most likely outcome. So I'm going to go with that. I think that'll give us plus 1169 on the parlay. So a little over 11-1. Not too bad.
Did we hit last time, didn't we? Or was it just a plug parlay that hit last week or last slate?
I hit the last two plug parlays at like 23-1. The stream parlays remain undefeated, and by that I mean winless.
All right, back-to-back 23-1 wins, right? Like that alone should encourage you, should pique your interest to read the daily plug. OccupyFantasy.com. It's up now. Links in the description below. Jake puts all of his favorite bets, his favorite DFS plays for low risk and high risk contests, the lineup construction tips for specific contests. Literally everything you need to dominate a UFC card is in the daily plug. If you want more information, right, you want to get background on every fighter, go check out MMADFS.com where Jake does the sheet, has the archives as well where you can look at historical data. It's an invaluable resource. Occupy and MMADFS.com. Not much more can get you prepared for an MMA DFS slate. So for Jake, at DFS_MMA on Twitter, I'm at Brian Jesser FF. We appreciate you listening as always. If you have any questions, hit us up here on Twitter or on YouTube. More importantly, just join our Discord server, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. Ask us questions, sweat the fights with us. And make sure you like the video here. And if you do like it, subscribe. That way you get notified whenever we go live. We're doing these videos all throughout the rest of the fall and the winter. So for Jake, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening and good luck in UFC Paris.